Last video I'm going to do today is Chief Master Instructor Kenny Smith, Total Force Training Group. We're going to talk about what determines a work knife or a reactive knife. Someone call it a defensive knife. I don't use the term. I think saying something is defensive implies that you wait on something else to start. I use reactive for that. Versus a proactive knife. A proactive knife means that maybe you were justified. Hey, buddy. My land shark had to come see me, folks. Y'all can see him. That's my baby boy right there. But anyway. Hey. Potts. Potts. He's being stubborn too. But he knows Daddy's getting attention. Anyway, the difference between a reactive knife and a proactive knife is how it's used. Reactive knife is typified by the K-bar TPI. Okay? Better suited for cutting. Why? Because if I'm just trying to stop you from doing something to me, if I can attack muscle structure, tendons, ligaments, things like that, it'll stop you from doing it. Okay? If I'm going proactive, that means I'm trying to stop it before it progresses. Maybe that means I'm more likely to put you down. That's a thrusting type of attack. Okay? A proactive knife should have at least a 4-inch blade. Okay? Have at least a 4-inch blade. If it doesn't, yeah, it's better suited for other stuff. But, you know, it's a thrusting type of attack. That's what separates it. Think of a reactive knife as a cutting knife and a proactive knife as a killing knife. Okay, a proactive knife should be usable in all 5 of the grips that I showed in our knife grip DVD, not DVD, wow, video. I'm actually going to do a knife DVD. That'll be the first one I put out when I decide to start making them. But anyway, you know, you should be able to use it in any grip. This is where the Fairbairn grip comes in. Okay, and I'm going to swap off right quick. I'm going to a box cutter with the blade retracted, and I'm going to I'm going to kill my heavy bag. Okay, when you start thrusting, if you're using a thrust, that thing has to be extremely, extremely durable at the point, because in prisons they call this the sewing machine method. I'm not going to stick once, maybe twice, and hope for the best, and I about cut my bag so things started coming out. I'm going to use a collapsed asp. Okay. I'm going to grab whatever I'm grabbing, back of the head, back of the neck, whatever, and I'm going to start thrusting, and I'm going to act like a sewing machine. Okay? Unless I'm going surgical, which for a defensive type of thing, where you're actually defending yourself, or maybe, you know, preventing bad things from happening, that's not going to work. That would be, you know, thrusting into the back of the thigh, things like that. But you have to reach further than most smaller blades will allow. Okay? The biggest difference between the two is a reactive knife is centered around cutting, and a proactive knife or a killing knife is centered around thrusting. Okay? Double-edged daggers are the king of that. They ain't worth a damn for anything else. But if you need to kill somebody with a knife, okay, this video is actually meant for informational purposes only. Unless you're a Special Forces guy or a SEAL team member or something like that, you're never going to use this. Okay? This is proactive self-defense. Might be you're alone in your house. Not necessarily alone. Maybe you're on one side of the house, your wife and kids are on the other, husband and kids are on the other, whatever. Okay? You know there's been a home invasion. They haven't got to you yet. You get behind one. Obviously, you don't want to start cutting on them if they're armed. That, you know, the knife goes down into their throat and through there. That is the only legal use there would be for this. As such, that's the only use of it, unless you're one of those special operations personnel that I will condone. Total Force Training Group, myself, all my employees, everybody else, we hold no liability for what you do. Again, this is for information purposes only. This knife right here, my cheap one, this is more of a bush blade. Okay, because of the type of blade, it's not well suited for thrusting. All right, but the ideal killing knife is a long double-edged blade. Tonto works fine, but you want it at least 4.5 to 5 inches. Anyway, I'm probably going to restrict this video, but you know, I hope you guys watch this and learn it and see that, you know, the double-edged knives do have a use. You get guys that are, you know, whatever they say, double-edged knife has no use because you can't use it for survival. A survival knife is a survival knife. A killing knife is for killing. Same thing, just like a competition gun. An IDPA gun set up for IDPA matches are set up for IDPA matches. They're set up for a game. They're not set up for, you know, self-defense. Self-defense with a gun implies killing. Okay, and the reason for that is when I point this weapon at you, okay, and there's nobody holding that camera, by the way, but when I point this weapon at you, one of two things happens. You either stop doing what you're doing because you're afraid I'm going to shoot you, and you're afraid of being shot because you're afraid of being killed. Or you are shot and possibly killed. Okay? So keep that in mind when it comes to looking at knives. A reactive knife is one best suited for cutting tendons, cutting muscles. Okay? That is the one you need. A knife that's best suited for thrusting is a strictly offensive purposes blade. Matter of fact, here in North Carolina, carrying certain types of knives to include what I just described as a killing knife, it concealed is absolutely illegal, and in most places it is. So, and that's one of those. I have a permit to carry concealed handgun. Why doesn't it apply to a knife? I can kind of understand it. There's really only one reason to carry a large double-edged knife on your person. So, you know, a good idea if you're looking, maybe because you want to learn more of the study of it. Maybe you're a military guy, special operations personnel, something like that. Gerber Mark II is a good one. Highly recommend that blade. Cold Steel's OSS is a good one. And I wish they still made the Peacekeeper. I think it was the Peacekeeper anyway, the double-edged dagger that didn't have the sub-hilt. I think it's the Peacekeeper. Wish they still made those. If they do, then I'm probably going to get one. But it's just something to think about, okay? Why? Because if you think about the offensive use of a blade, okay, you're better suited to using it for a defensive use. Typically, I don't use the terms offensive and defensive. Offensive typically implies that you started it. Defensive implies that you waited for it to happen. So I use reactive and proactive because true self-defense can actually be legal somewhere in the gap of that. If they're starting it and giving you reason to believe they're going to start it, you don't have to wait for them to hit you first in most places. As long as a reasonable and prudent person would believe that they were in risk of death or serious bodily harm, maybe you can go into that thrusting that I talked about. I wouldn't suggest doing the sewing machine because that's prison stuff. But anyway, you know, maybe you can in between the ribs, stuff like that. But the knife has to be suited for it. If you're going to use a thrusting attack, it has to be extremely strong at the point. And that's the reason why I made this video, not to insinuate, you know, whatever, but it does two things. It highlights the dangers of thrusting-based attacks with knives. They're extremely hard to defend. Anybody that tells you otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. I would rather face a gun than a dynamic knife. Okay? I'd rather you put a gun in my face and start threatening me with it than I would for you to pull out a knife and start trying to stick me in the belly. That's just me. Matter of fact, our hand-to-hand guy says the same thing. Okay? Me and him shared that opinion for a long time. Now that you understand how serious it is, you can start to train it, because when you learn how to fight with a knife, when you learn how to be offensive with a knife, you learn how to defend against it as well. I hope that makes sense to everybody. This is probably going to cause another shitstorm like my safety video did, but again, I don't care, because that means you took time to talk about the world me. Haters going to hate anyway. All right, talk to y'all later on. Stay in the fight.